Alright, how's it going, guys? My name is David, aka Magic, and I am here with PPL D2 Week 5 Power Rankings. Once again alone, even with the break week. Bird and I could not get a proper schedule going, and so here I am, all by myself. But we don't need any of that. Let's jump right into the battles this week. First off, down at the bottom, we have Raekwyn and the Park Rangers, and they almost had a win. Almost. They had it. Rai brought a really cool Licky Licky set, and it worked out for him. It ended up trapping the Finny just like he planned, and it was really interesting. It was an interesting decision by RTK after seeing the Whirlpool to then not switch out his Tapu Fini, but I'm not going to judge that. He had Encore into Nasty Plot of Zelf, which was really powerful, and it would have also done a lot of work had he just been timid and foregone the U-turn and knockoff damage, which was kind of irrelevant in the long run, unless being hasty or a not attack reducing nature helped them get like KOs or something. I didn't really understand why the need to be it. But let's get to the main issue. He almost won, but because he didn't want to wait 20 seconds, I believe it was, if I remember it right, he ended up losing due to HP, and he knew he was going to win based off of... In the long game, he knew he was going to win, right? From his commentary, it seemed like he knew he was going to win at the end of the day if the game extended without a timer. So if he knew he was going to win in the long run, and he knew he was going to win in 20 seconds, there was no plausible way of him pulling ahead by sacking the Celesteela, but I'm not going to judge Rai harshly for that. Like, that's... If he didn't want to win by timer, then more power to him. But I can't really, like, praise it, if you get me. And I respect that he did it, but as somebody who's supposed to critique his play, I can't praise it. So, anyway, moving on to our number 11th, who dropped down a few spots, if I'm not mistaken. Dropped down one spot. The Accrington Stantler, coached by Ellie. Ellie brought memes, and the memes were woefully shut down by a casual flinch from a Mantine. It was going to be great. Lil Shelmet was going to do something, and then it gets flinched, and everybody was sad. I brought really interesting stuff. I don't know if it was really great stuff. Unaware CM Clef was cool, and if the Acid Armor got passed to it, would have been great. But what would have been even better is if the Clefable had stored power with all that greatness, because like a stored power set with Acid Armor and Calm Mind, there's not a lot that could beat that. But here we are. The rest of the sets were kind of meh. Ellie kind of lost turn 1 lost a lot of momentum turn 1 when when the Lando hit the Crobat with the Stone Edge while Crobat went for Roost before the Lando attacked. Maybe it's not knowing speeds, or I don't know what happened that the Lando outsped. It didn't outspeed. But here we are. She ended up losing a lot of momentum off that, and then pair the flinch with that. It was just a really straightforward win from there for Alex, when Ellie really could have brought it back with that baton pass. But there's that. Up next is Shroom down at the bottom. Shroom brought interesting stuff like dual screens Mammoth Swine. I wasn't really a big fan of that. He just couldn't break Cheese stuff. So Lazzle just refused to make the aggressive play, and he ended up killing his own Salazzle off pretty much due to Life Orb recoil. That was where most of his health went, between rocks and Life Orb and all that stuff. He had a good read on the Florges set. He knew it was he knew it had HP ground and all that stuff. I believe it was HP ground. Yeah, it was HP ground for the Salazzle. He scouted for it, all that fun stuff. Really great prep. But one thing about Shroom's prep that I didn't like is how it didn't really account for Cheese defense. He couldn't really break anything on Cheese team to then let Salazzle sweep. Like, Salazzle was his breaker, but then he never tried to set up to break with it. And ultimately that's what cost him. I think he could have prepped it a bit better, but I'm splitting hairs at this point. I think Chi prepped and brought amazing stuff, and we'll get to him later, but it was really a lot of Shroom, like, just playing out the turns and playing his Salazzle really poorly, I think. But hopefully he can pick it up. Up next is Richie, who actually goes up for beating Carson, who has been on a bit of a losing streak. But I said Richie. I forgot to fix the graphic. It is not Richie, it is Slyro. And Slyro pretty much won due to a 50-50. He brought some really cool stuff like Water MZ Manaphy with Tail Glow. Firefang Donphan was cool. And Foul Play Rotom really helped him win, because Carson miscalculated something and thought he can kill at +2 when he should have just went for 2+1 attacks. But ultimately it came down to a 50-50 with a Scarfness Magius and a Jolteon, I believe, or Sneasel. It was Sneasel, Jolteon, and a Mismag Bulu? Yeah. And Sly won the 50-50, and there we go. So he moves up a couple spots. Up next is his opponent, who has been dropping steadily the entire time, and that is Carson. He's not doing too hot, but he brought some cool stuff, and he could have won. He 100% could have won had he been a bit more aggressive with his Zard, and like just been more aggressive with his Zard. It could have come in a couple times, but he wanted to play it safe, and then he ended up losing it because of how he decided to set up twice instead of just attacking twice. Decidueye was the MVP, 100%. Like, that bulky muscle band nonsense was great, and he got some good plays on it. He trapped the Torn and then he killed it. It was fantastic. It was a good lure. He miscalced and he lost, and then he had to play 50-50 to try and get back into the game, and he lost that too. So unfortunately Carson caught another L, and I can only hope that he picks himself back up and starts winning games. But let's go all the way back to Onesie and the Birmingham Spreadsheet and their big win against Ellie. Turn 1 was massive. Mantine came in clutch with the nice, easy flinch. And then last but not least, Onesie really set up, aside from the flinch and all that stuff, Onesie set up his game plan very well. He knew how he could win. He just had to set up for his sweep, and he managed to pull it off with a Sash Rocks Lando, getting 3 kills, and then just in general everything just sort of coming together. Yeah, not much to say about that game. I kind of covered it with Ellie stuff, but Onesie played it extremely well. and he made the best possible play he could each turn, and I think that's what ultimately gave him the win over the very scary meme Shelmet. Up next is the AS Rowlets, coached by Aston Akai. Eric really coming in clutch against Liam. Ape is an absolute monster. The turn 1 momentum was pretty good. He just sort of gained momentum from that first turn and just never let go. Unfortunately, nasty natural gift grass didn't get to work because it got scattered by the Gorgeist. But it ended up being a super close game, all things considered. But yeah, Infernape just proving to be absolutely disgusting. And not really much else to say about that. Eric played it really well. Liam kind of chokes a bit. He was really putting in a lot of work with Starmie. Z-move Starmie was doing so much. It killed the Mew. It killed a bunch of other stuff. I think it killed Gera? I don't remember. But Starmie did a lot. No, it killed Pharaoh, I believe. Whatever. Yeah. Starmie did a lot of work, and it could have done more work, but Liam decided to sack it off to the Gyarados and move from there. He had a lot of very easy reads, or I guess 50-50 reads with his Hitmonlee to predict the Granbull coming in and hit him with a Poison Jab, and it would have done a lot of damage and potentially put him in range for the other moves later to then keep his momentum and keep his sort of lead that he was trying to build back for himself. But then he chokes away the pressure that he had, and then Infernape just cleans. Nothing else to say about that. But all things considered, Liam was very high last week on the ladder, on the rankings, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I had him at 2, so he drops down while Eric goes up, and sort of they're meeting right next to each other. But speaking of teams that are right next to each other on the rankings, we have Potato Jim, who drops from first spot down to 4th, and his opponent, the Harlem Gloomtrotters, coached by Kyle, right up above him. Unfortunately, the game was lost into the abyss known as power outages, and it was hard to follow along without the use of sock puppets. So I'm really dinging Jim for not going through with his sock puppet plan. That's really why he's 4th. But no, I happened to watch the game live in the Discord, and it was, from the sound of it, Jim really just outplayed himself with his Blaziken set. It was sub SD ground fighting. It was really good. It could have done a lot of damage to Kyle's team, but he just really misplayed around it. He just refused to click a ground move against the Toxapex. The Toxapex didn't even know it had Earthquake. Kyle was worried about either Earthquake or Thunder Punch, and if he was worried about Thunder Punch, he couldn't really go into a Hydreigon on a +2 Thunder Punch, so he had to sort of scout with his Toxapex. He couldn't risk switching anything into an ZEQ and it not being ZEQ and Jim just being like Dual Stab or Thunder Punch or whatever. It was too risky for Kyle to switch out. Jim just kept thinking he would switch out, and he ultimately lost his best wall breaker against Kyle in a really unfortunate series of events. And from there, it was just Kyle doing work with Hydreigon, Victini, Keldeo, all that stuff. T-Spike's just putting a big hurt on Jim's team, since he did not bring Blastoise. Liquidation was a really good bring on Pex because it let him break things that he probably shouldn't have had the right to break anyway, like a Scald or something. Like he would with Scald. Aside from that, Jirachi almost came in and helped, but it ultimately did nothing. Miltank proving that it's awesome and really great, and I feel like he could have been more aggressive with the Zygarde, but it just ended up not happening. It's really unfortunate. Hopefully Jim picks himself back up, and Kyle is getting a bunch of wins and is third on the league table in addition to being third in the power rankings, so good on you, Kyle. Keep it up. Up next is the Portland Timbers, who we touched on with Rai, who should have lost this game, but because they won and because they still played it well with like the Frostlass set and foul play Porygon and all this other sort of stuff that he had that ended up working well, I couldn't really justify dropping him super low, like with like Jim and Liam, who were also very high, but then drop. That would mean Kyle would be at 2, and while that's maybe the case this week, I don't know. I think the Kyle game was more Jim losing than Kyle winning, and much like, whereas RDK, I felt like didn't play to the best of his ability, but he managed to pull out a win due to timer, and therefore he gets to rightfully move up or stay up. But last but not least, the amazing Chi and his new Crystal United just destroyed Shroom in a 5-0. He prepped extremely well. Super Fang's great, especially when it misses. He predicted the Zapdos extremely well with his Delmise and managed to catch it with a wonderful Rock Slide into Earthquake. So that was cool. But yeah, overall the game was super straightforward. She just played it well, and Shroom just couldn't break what he brought. And yeah, I want to say more, but there really isn't much to say. AV Delmise did a lot of work. Electros got 2 kills, which is not something I see every day. It was like E-Belt Flash Cannon, which is really cool. But yeah, that concludes week 5's power rankings. I'm going to see if I can do something about this, me being by myself every week. But until next time, I'm David, and I will catch you all next week. Peace.